The National Desk, America's News Now.
More document drama.
I mean, it's just hard to believe that in the United States of America we have a former president and a current president that basically in the same situation.
Discoveries unfold at the president's Delaware home as criticism over the handling of classified information rolls in from both sides of the aisle this morning. White House shakeup. The changes to top leadership in the president's administration, who's tapped to be the next chief of staff. Plus, mourning today in California.
A time of a cultural celebration. And yet another community has been torn apart by senseless gun violence. All of us in this room and in our country understand this violence must stop.
The state recorded its second mass shooting in less than a week, with 10 killed at a Lunar New Year celebration over the weekend. Debt limit limbo. The plans to strike a deal to pay off the national debt. And eggflation alternative.
We're looking at, 3 to 4 times what the cost of eggs were, say, this time last year.
The changes some Americans are making to save as prices continue to soar. Live from the nation's capital, this is the National Desk, America's News Now. I'm Scott Thuman in for Jan, and we start this Monday together with the debate over the nation's debt limit still in limbo and concerns growing after more classified document drama unfolded over the weekend. But we start with a mass shooting in Los Angeles. At least 10 people killed at a Lunar New Year celebration. Cale Thompson joins us from the live desk. He's got the very latest on this. Cale.
Good morning to you. Still expecting more information to come out on this today. Police now believe the suspect in the Monterey Park shooting is dead. They found 72-year-old Hu Can Tran inside the white van that you see in this video Sunday, dead from a self-inflicted gunshot wound. Authorities say he shot and killed 10 people and wounded 10 more inside an LA dance club during a Lunar New Year celebration. 7 people still in the hospital this morning. Less than 30 minutes after the first attack, police say Tran entered a second dance hall in Alhambra, California, just a few miles away, where people were able to wrestle the gun away from him. In both of these incidents, they happened inside one of the area's largest Asian American communities.
We don't know if this is specifically a hate crime defined by law, but who walks into a dance hall and guns down 20 people?
Also want to take you live to the White House this morning. Look closely and you will see the flag now lowered to half staff in honor of the victims. President Biden and Vice President Harris both condemning the tragedy in Harris's home state.
A time of a cultural celebration. And yet another community has been torn apart by senseless gun violence. All of us in this room and in our country understand this violence must stop.
Police are still working this morning on Tran's motive. We're also learning a little more about the victims as well. I'll have more on that coming up here in just 30 minutes.
All right, thank you, Cale. New House Speaker Kevin McCarthy is expected to meet this week with the president to discuss a range of topics, including raising the national debt limit. No timeline for that meeting has been set, but the administration emphasized the president is not willing to entertain policy concessions in exchange for lifting the debt limit. In the meantime, the Treasury Department has deployed extraordinary measures to keep the government from defaulting on debts for at least a few more months. A live look now over the White House this morning after more classified documents were discovered at the president's home in Wilmington, Delaware. The latest document drama even drawing scrutiny from Biden's own party. The National Desk's Atra El-Nashar joins us from Capitol Hill with what we know about the FBI's search of the president's Delaware home. Good morning, Atra.
Hey, good morning, Scott. So we know that the search lasted almost 13 hours. That's according to the president's personal attorney, Bob Bauer. We know both the president's personal attorneys were there as well as the White House counsel's office. Bauer says the Department of Justice had full access to the home, including the president's personal records, that the search was consensual, and that the department requested the search not be announced publicly before it occurred, as is standard protocol. Now, we know they took 6 batches of records, but we don't know how many documents that included nor their level of classification. Now, of course, the political fallout continues for the president. Here's how Democratic Senator Dick Durbin, who chairs the Senate Judiciary Committee, reacted on Sunday morning.
Let's be honest about it. When that information is found, it diminishes the stature of any person who is in possession of it, because it's not supposed to happen. Whether it was the fault of a staffer or an attorney, it makes no difference. The elected official bears ultimate responsibility.
Now, Durbin among those also pointing out the differences between this and the investigation into classified documents, hundreds of them found at Mar-a-Lago, that former President Trump's team did not show the same level of cooperation with the FBI, which had to obtain a search warrant. I'm Atra Al-Nashar for the National Desk, America's News Now.
Yeah, important difference there. All right, thank you, Atra. Well, a big shakeup in the president's administration. White House Chief of Staff Ron Klain, who spent more than 2 years as President Joe Biden's top aide, is reportedly stepping down in the coming weeks. The president is expected to tap Jeff Zients for the job. Zients ran the administration's response to the COVID-19 pandemic at the start of Biden's term. Since then, Zients has held a low-profile position concerning staffing. Now to your money, and the group Farm Action is calling on the Federal Trade Commission to investigate possible price gouging at Cal-Maine Foods, which controls 20% of the retail egg market. Price of eggs went up 138% in December year to year, according to the Bureau of Labor Statistics. The USDA citing a record outbreak of avian flu and higher production costs as reasons for those price hikes. Meanwhile, officials with the Customs and Border Protection say they've seen an increase of eggs being smuggled over the southern border in recent weeks. We've also learned illegal border crossings in December reached their highest level since President Biden took office. Data revealed that CBP officials encountered 251,487 migrants. That is 11% higher than in November and was largely fueled by people fleeing authoritarian regimes in Nicaragua and Cuba. And those new numbers also reveal Border Patrol agents stopped 17 people on the FBI's terror watch list at the southern border in December. That brings the total to 38 for the current fiscal year. The U.S. Justice Department launched a probe into the Abbott baby formula plant in Michigan, at the center of that formula shortage from last year. The National Desk's Angela Brown joins us live in studio this morning with more on that investigation. Angela?
And good morning, Scott. Abbott is the country's largest baby formula maker. So when the Sturgis, Michigan plant shut down nearly a year ago, it set off this domino effect, playing a major role in the baby formula shortage. This morning, the Wall Street Journal is reporting that Abbott is under a federal criminal investigation led once again by the DOJ. The key word here is criminal. Abbott is reportedly cooperating this morning. Now, this all goes back to February last year. Abbott voluntarily shut down the Michigan plant in Sturgis after babies were getting sick after drinking the formula. The FDA, they went in, they found bacteria, a leaky roof, some other violations, but investigators could not link the bacteria at that plant to what was making all of those babies sick. Eventually, the plant did reopen, but Abbott's problems, as we're reporting this morning, are far from over. The probe is reportedly a criminal investigation. The money question this morning is what the DOJ is seeing to open up this type of criminal investigation. As we learn more, we'll pass it along.
All right. Thank you for that, Angela. Well, some concerns about COVID may be easing up while some others grow. The Washington Post reports that fears of a triple-demic are fading as cases of COVID, flu, and RSV have been on the decline. With the virus still out there, though, the CDC also posted a video suggesting people talk to their vaccinator about getting Mpox vaccines at the same time as flu or COVID shots. Recent studies have indicated more research is being done about possible stroke and myocarditis risk in people who've had mRNA shots. This all comes as the Toronto Sun reports Canada now has 400 reported deaths and more than 10,000 serious injuries following people receiving a vaccine, but Health Canada indicates it has confidence in vaccinations to battle coronavirus variants. The CEO of Pfizer dismissing concerns about vaccine side effects.
What the CDC said was that they saw a signal in one small database, and as a result, they triggered a very comprehensive review of all databases in existence, and they discovered nothing. So then, just for transparency reasons, we had seen a signal, we tested, we found nothing. The same is with us. We constantly review and analyze data. We've seen not a single signal.
But Americans do have questions about That, a new Rasmussen poll found 57% of likely U.S. voters believe that Congress should investigate how the CDC handled COVID vaccine safety. And ahead this morning, we're looking into possible safety issues over COVID vaccines. We're going to talk with Dr. Jeffrey Singer, who will break down these latest studies.
And winter storm warnings active now for millions across the Northeast, where we could see over half a foot of snow today. And I'll look ahead to the next big storm taking shape, where it could be aiming. Coming up. All right, I want to give you a live look here over Boston this morning. Might be a little bit bumpy if you are flying in or out of Logan Airport. This is why I want to bring in the National Desk radar and show you what conditions look like right now over New England. Blue is heavy snow, greens and yellows are rain, the purple in between, that's a wintry mix. In fact, just got this update, more than 28,000 outages right now, it looks like, in parts of New Hampshire. Winter storm warnings, you see them here in pink, stretching from the capital region in New York all the way up into central New England along the coast of Maine. Winter storm advisories in blue around it, and we have a winter storm watch now issued over parts of Ohio, stretching down into parts of New Mexico. Talk more about that in a second. Couple of snow forecasts. National Weather Service says areas around Albany could see 4 to 8 inches by the time all is said and done this afternoon. Manchester, New Hampshire could be looking at 7 to 10 by tonight. Same for areas around Portland, Maine. Boston, though, you'll notice on the lower end of this at 2 to 4 inches. That's because of the rain they've got right now. It is all part of the same storm system, though, that dropped around 6 inches of snow in Cincinnati and across parts of Ohio on Sunday, making for a rough go of it on the roads. By the way, any untreated roads there will, with snow or slush still this morning, will be slick again after refreezing overnight. As for the next winter storm I mentioned taking shape right now, we'll talk more about that and where it's aiming coming up in 30 minutes.
People in parts of New England are preparing for that storm. Some Maine residents stopped by stores to get the gear they need to dig out, while state troopers are working to keep people safe. Our coverage continues with reporter Asia Reed from our Portland, Maine station.
Some Mainers are upgrading their shovel game after the last winter storm.
We're replacing our shovels. Now that there's 2 storms back to back, we realize that maybe it's time to get those nice plow shovels that everyone has in their driveway.
Kate Widener already has salt and sand. A new shovel was the last tool to take on Sunday night's snowstorm.
My back will probably feel a little more prepared.
I need that. Not everyone was as prepared. Maine Hardware was packed this weekend with folks getting last-minute supplies. As far as traveling Monday morning, being prepared helps for a safe commute.
We have an all-wheel drive vehicle, so that should be good enough.
Maine State Police are getting ahead of this storm by telling travelers to plan ahead and drive slow.
Factor in that extra half an hour to an hour for your commute so that you are able to do it safely.
The state is already prepared to treat roadways for safer travel.
Maintenance crews will be out all hours of the day trying to plow and sand. But again, we need that cooperation from the public for people just to slow down.
State police warn drivers to watch out for ice and other vehicles on the road. Officers responded to more than 30 crashes in last month's snowstorm that struck right before Christmas. CMP says a quarter of the outages they saw were caused by car crashes, and folks are getting ready for another snowstorm that may be coming later this week.
Yeah, if we're ready for this one, I think we'll be ready for Thursday.
In Portland, Asia Reed.
We'll have continuing coverage of that wintry weather on thenationaldesk.com, and there you can find the latest reports from the National Weather Desk. The CDC identifies a possible safety issue with Pfizer's updated COVID-19 vaccine, but still advises people get boosted. And fentanyl test strips save lives, but most states ban them. Joining us now to discuss that and more, Senior Fellow at the Cato Institute, Dr. Jeffrey Singer. Thanks for joining us, Doctor.
Good morning.
The Centers for Disease Control and Prevention and the FDA on Friday said they plan to investigate a preliminary safety signal of a possible increase in a certain kind of stroke in people 65 and older who recently got one of the updated Pfizer boosters. Doctor, tell us more about this vaccine safety monitoring system and if that stroke risk is big or small.
Well, the data link system was set up by the CDC back in the 1990s. Basically, they have a network of health centers around the country. I think in September, the most recent number was 13 health centers. And their job is to report to them anything they see that looks like an adverse reaction to a vaccine. So they reported that they had a preliminary safety signal, which means there's some kind of a possibility that it might cause what they call ischemic strokes. These are strokes from cutoffs of the circulation from small blood clots in the brain in people over 65. But it's very preliminary, and in fact, they haven't seen this in the European CDC, so we don't know that this is really a fact yet. They're looking into it.
Is that why the CDC is still advising people to get boosted, even if there is this possible safety issue? Do the pros outweigh the cons?
I agree with a lot of critics about this. The CDC and the FDA approved this vaccine without even convening the FDA vaccine advisory panel like they usually do. It was only tested on 8 mice, basically everybody who's getting the booster right now is part of the clinical trial because there was no clinical trial. The director and deputy director of the vaccine division of the FDA about a year ago resigned in protest because they felt they were being pressured by the White House to approve things too quickly. It made sense back in the early days of the pandemic when hospitals were filling up and people were dying to give emergency use authorization. But now, since almost everyone in the country has a certain degree of immunity that protects them at least against severe infection in most cases, I don't think there's any justification for rushing this out without doing clinical trials, particularly when you're giving it to, they're recommending it for children 6 months and over. And that age group has almost zero risk of a bad outcome from COVID. So I don't think so.
So with these 2 new studies that show that perhaps the boosters don't provide any greater protection against Omicron variants than the original shot, are you saying that there needs to be some sort of reassessment of how future COVID vaccines are developed?
Yes, I think so. This booster protects people against the original Wuhan variant, which no longer exists, and the BA.4/5 variant, which has almost been completely replaced now by the XBB variant. So that's why it's been shown so far. It looks like it's only about 25 to 30% effective. And in the meantime, there's a lot of evidence, particularly a recent study out of the Cleveland Clinic, suggesting that too many boosters actually may increase your risk of getting an acute infection. And we already know from numerous studies that people who've either had the infection or got the original 2 shots plus the booster seem to have long-lasting protection against severe disease. So I think we need to rethink this whole strategy.
All right, lastly, switching gears here, let's shift to the fentanyl test strips. The Wall Street Journal reports that drug users at parties and nightclubs increasingly are using these strips before engaging in drug use. And while the CDC and most public health agencies endorse distributing these test strips, it's still, from what we understand, illegal in 42 states and the District of Columbia. Is banning them the right move? What do you think needs to be done to handle this in a perhaps better way?
Yeah, just so people understand, the FDA approved fentanyl test strips years ago for use in hospitals, emergency rooms, urgent cares to test the urine of overdose victims. It could detect fentanyl and many fentanyl derivatives. And several years ago, harm reduction people found that you could actually test the drug directly to see if it contains fentanyl. And now many, many young people are purchasing on the black market what they think is Adderall or cocaine or Xanax or a prescription pain pill. And many times they're counterfeit or they contain fentanyl because they were obtained on the black market. So if you could test this, you could save lives. But 49 states, the only state that doesn't have this is Alaska. 49 states have what they call drug paraphernalia laws that make it illegal to possess, sell, or give out anything used to consume, make, or test drugs. So in 42 states, handing fentanyl test strips to someone can get you arrested for handing out drug paraphernalia. And this has got it should be a no-brainer to. First of all, I think the drug paraphernalia laws are standing in the way of harm reduction, but at the minimum, we should at least take fentanyl test strips off the list of forbidden paraphernalia, which it still is in 42 states.
All right, we'll see what happens with that fight. Dr. Singer, thank you so much for joining us here on the National Desk this Monday morning.
Thank you, Scott.
We're following breaking news here at the Live Desk. Music streaming giant Spotify, the latest tech company to announce layoffs this morning. Spotify just posting a message online saying it will cut its workforce by 6%. That's around 600 workers. Employees being let go will get an average of 5-month severance. Spotify, based in Sweden. But like many tech companies in the U.S., Spotify says changes in the economy and falling demand now mean expenses are outpacing revenues, and that is forcing the company to trim costs. We're back in 90 seconds. All right, if you're just joining us, take a look here because we now have the booking photos of the 6 people arrested in Atlanta after a peaceful protest turned violent on Saturday night. Each of the faces in these photos is facing felony charges, including domestic terrorism, arson, criminal damage, and interference with a government property. All but one also coming from out of state. Hundreds of people gathered in the heart of Atlanta on Saturday night to protest the death of 26-year-old Manuel Terán. Terán died in a shootout with police on Wednesday after allegedly refusing demands to leave the construction site of a new Atlanta police training center and shooting a Georgia state trooper. On Saturday, protesters were caught on camera breaking windows and setting a police cruiser on fire.
And some of them were found with explosives on them. You heard that correctly, explosives, and that has led to a police officer's car being set on fire, and other destruction has occurred. And so make no mistake about it, these individuals meant harm to people and to property.
Police also say the violence was confined to a minority of the protesters that night. Opponents of the new police training center, though, have dubbed it Cop City. Authorities say they do not plan to identify the trooper involved in Terán's shooting over concerns about retaliation.
Hollywood actor Jeremy Renner says he broke more than 30 bones. He posted this picture on Instagram showing his new workout routine, physical therapy. Renner was accidentally run over by a snowplow on New Year's Day. According to the 911 call, his upper torso was crushed by the snowcat. Renner thanked everyone for their support and well wishes. Ahead in our next half hour, tragic massacre. Police provide new details of the 10 victims involved in the deadliest mass shooting since Uvalde. Plus, production disruption, increased egg costs, leading families to build coops in their backyards. Now, here's a look at America's news and weather where you live.
A storm system off the coast of southern New England is going to continue to work off towards the north and east through the daytime today. And you notice the snow on the backside of it, especially inland. That's where we'll see the heaviest snowfall. And then southern New England likely going to transition over to snow throughout the afternoon and evening, where a few inches of snow will likely accumulate. That moves on out of here for the day Tuesday. The highest snowfall totals will be over towards areas like Maine, New Hampshire, Vermont, a little bit lighter southern New England.
I'm meteorologist Jonathan Myers, and here's a look at the Mid-Atlantic region, starting off with some rain up and down the 95 corridor as we wrap up the morning commute. But by noontime and beyond, some sunshine could be breaking out, and it's kind of a seasonably chilly day with temperatures generally in the 40s and the 50s as that latest weather maker moves out. About 46 in Baltimore, will be at 42 up in Philadelphia, 40 in Cumberland, Maryland, 44 in Roanoke, Virginia, and 52 down Richmond way. That's the scene here.
I'm meteorologist Vitas Reed. Here's a look at your southeast forecast highs for the day. It looks like we're going to see a cool one in Nashville, 46 degrees, 51 Raleigh, 48 in Atlanta. Get a little warmer down to the south towards Pensacola at 59 degrees, 67 Tampa, 79 West Palm. It looks like there's a front that's going to continue to push through the southeast. As it does so, it's going to continue to take a chance for some showers down over parts of central Florida, but clearing up behind that front a few showers in the Carolinas, but we'll get high pressure to follow with sunshine.
Well, good Monday morning, everyone. I'm meteorologist Andrew Buckmichael. Taking a look at your weather story across the Midwest. A little quiet for most of us for the day today. There's a little bit of light flurry and snow activity in the Ohio Valley. Heading into your Tuesday, most of us are pretty quiet, but we are watching this storm system starting to move in from the south late Tuesday, and that's going to be up into the Ohio Valley with a decent amount of snow across the lower Great Lakes in the Ohio Valley on Wednesday, and even some rain mixing in Kentucky and Ohio.
Good Monday morning. I'm meteorologist Joe DiCarlo. Look at our forecast across the region. We're going to start off clear and cold, 20s and 30s across a good portion of the region. We'll see more cloud cover start to move in from South Texas throughout the day. Otherwise, pretty nice day. Partly sunny skies, 40s across Oklahoma, 50s and low 60s across Texas into Louisiana. As you head towards your Tuesday, though, here comes this storm system. A big mess expected Tuesday with heavy rain across much of Texas and snow northwest Texas into portions of Oklahoma.
Good morning. I'm meteorologist Rebecca Stevenson. Here's what's happening across the West. We have below normal temperatures across much of the West, but well below normal, especially around New Mexico. As these temperatures are so cold, we're going to get a lot of mountain snow across the Southwest today. But the Santa Ana winds starting to blow very strong across California, and also powerful winds impacting Nevada, bringing wind chills into Utah. And that's the scene from here.